Tia here with Mastering Pop, and today we're talking about protecting our wealth with Wealth Financial Flowers, Mekey Gabriel, and I'm also sharing which e-commerce store I'm giving away. So you guys, let me just tell you how this room even came about, right? I was actually having a conversation with Mekey a few weeks ago, probably even like a couple months ago. And I was talking about my godson, which if you're a part of the inner circle, you guys know who my godson is. His name is Jaden. And he is my everything, right? So I was telling Mekey how I was going to give one of my stores away to him, and I was building it up. So the store that I'm going to give away to him, it's been live since the pandemic. I created it during the pandemic, and I created it because we had a lot of free time, you guys. We couldn't really do much, right? So I had Flower Power Packages. If you're new to the call, again, flowerpowerpackages.com is my cannabis website. So I was telling her that I'm going to give him my store, and she was like, "You're just going to give him your store?" And I'm like, "Yeah, totally going to just give him my store." So my goal is this store is an actual Amazon affiliate store, and it's also a drop ship store, and I sell gaming products, right? So the gaming products, I basically sourced a bunch of gaming products on Amazon, and I created this store. So let's see, let me see if I can share my screen, because I'm just yapping away here. So boom, man, this has been wild. Boom. Sorry guys. So Gaming Girlfriends is the store. Let me know. Can you guys see this? Hopefully you guys can see this. Man, technology is tough sometimes. All right, so Gaming Girlfriends is one of my stores, and I make money with it every single month, and I don't have to do much. This store was really fun to make because it was super random. A friend of mine came to me and he said he had a gaming list that he didn't know what to do with it, right? And I'm like, I don't like to use lists where people didn't sign up, right? So he then explains to me that people do this all the time. They buy lists. Let's just give it a shot. So I wasn't sure what type of store I wanted to create. I knew that I wanted to use Shopify, and I knew that I wasn't even sure about drop shipping at the time. We were just going to do affiliate marketing, right? Affiliate, just basically affiliate stuff. So I put the store together. I added a bunch of products, fun products, very, very fun products. You can see I have a pretty big header navigation. So I have everything divided up by girl or guy. And accessories, I have lifestyle, home decor, stuff specifically for streamers. So some of these products are let me go to one where you can see, like if you go to this chair, you can actually buy it on the store. But if you go to, this is actually a person that I reached out to because I know how gamers are really into streaming. And of course, you want to have nice teeth, right? So I actually connected with Snow, had a call with them, but they're really popular. I'm sure some of you guys have even seen some of their sponsored ads on Facebook. So I saw this as well. This right here, you can basically view it on the website. So there's some products that are Amazon, and there's some products where I'm actually an affiliate where I signed up on their website. So let me find one that's actually Amazon. So this is view on Amazon. If I click the button, it'll take me to takes me to this Amazon product. But what's cool is that I used an app called Spreadr. Spreadr, SP as in Paul, READR. And this app allows for you to add Amazon products like fast. So using this app was really great. But the point is that now this website, it's only been live for a couple of years. My traffic went down, and I want to show you guys Gaming Girlfriends. I wasn't paying attention to it for a while. And I went from, let's see, my organic traffic was as high as 6,850, my organic search traffic, and I went all the way down to less than 2,000. And so the only reason why I ended up coming and checking the site was after my conversation with Mekey. I came to see how it was doing, right? So I went from organic keywords, so the quantity of keywords driving traffic to my website, almost 10,000, all the way down to 2,300. Again, the site hasn't been live. Let me just go to all time so you guys can see. It's been live since 2020, so not that long, right? And I was able to build it up in a way because I was ranking for a lot of great terms. So I rank for gamer girl cams, gamer girl chair, rug gaming, Spider-Man gaming. If I go over here, you guys can see all the keywords that I actually ranked for. I ranked for a lot more, obviously, because I had more keywords driving traffic to my website. But now I don't. So I'm going to be working on this store again to build it back up, because my godson Jaden can do whatever he wants. He could sell advertisement on the site, right? He could sell advertisement, getting people to pay him to maybe add their banner or a link that points to their website. He can continue to drop ship, right? He could remove all the Amazon products if he wants to, if he doesn't want people to actually leave the site to purchase a product, and he could do strictly drop shipping, or he can actually buy some products, right? He could, if he wanted to, Jaden could make gaming pads or, sell mouses specific to gaming girlfriends, right? If he wants to create a product on his own, he could, and sell that on the website. There's so many things that he can do with the website, but the point is that I'm giving it to him. So I want to build it up, and I want to build it up as much as I can, so that when I turn it over to him, it's making a significant amount of money, a minimum of $10,000 a month, right? I live in California. I'm in Marina Del Rey, California, and it's expensive to live out here. And he is here as well. And he's, let's see, Jaden is 16 years old. He's getting ready to be 17 in August. And he doesn't know anything about it. And I don't think I'm going to tell him for like another year or two. He is a gamer. He loves gaming. That is what he does when he comes to my house. He's always gaming. So back to Mekey. Mekey, I want you to introduce yourself. And again, you guys, the reason for this call was because I was telling her that I'm going to give this store away. And she's like, you're just going to give it to him? And I'm like, yes. So Mekey, thanks again for joining the call, and let everybody know who you are.
Awesome. Sorry about the technical difficulties this morning. I'm not sure. The dial-in would not let me be great. So I'm Mekey Gabriel. I've been in the securities industry a long time, approximately 27 years. I've worked everywhere from a broker-dealer to a trust company, and currently in Houston, Texas, working at a independent registered investment advisory. I've overwhelmingly worked with ultra high net worth clients, and a lot of them have entities that they utilize for their own personal family business, much less those enterprises that they work with that actually engage with the public. So this conversation with Tia, when she mentioned that, I was like, wait. The average person really doesn't know. Oops. Okay, sorry guys, phone call. The average person really doesn't know that the IRS does not allow you to randomly bless people. I usually have brunch with a friend in the morning, Tia, so I did not look at her text messages to see that I would not be engaging in brunch this early this morning. So the IRS does not allow you to randomly give people amounts of money that you don't document. So I always make this joke. There you go, fellas. You're limited at $16,000 per year, which is the annual gift tax amount for 2022. They set this amount every year. And basically, this is the amount that the IRS allows without you filing any tax documentation. The person who is doing the gifting, a gift tax form, and the person who is receiving that is income. So yes, they actually do oversee this to make sure that no one is just randomly giving people hundreds of thousands of dollars. If there are any gamillionaires or future gabillionaires listening, it's actually a way that you can move assets out of your estate. And for example, if a wealthy person were to just give someone $1 million, they would actually have to fill out a form, send it to the IRS, and let the IRS know that they have moved $1 million out of their estate, because there are certain amounts that you are restricted to, even if you are a millionaire. So fun fact, that's actually the way that a lot of people get in trouble when they're doing bad things. They can't arrest them for selling drugs or other things, but you know what they arrest them for? For tax evasion, because they don't report a lot of things on their taxes. So the IRS has a lot of strict guidelines. I suggest you all just really bless your CPAs, because they help you with tax mitigation and tax savings. So that is the first thing that came to mind when Tia said that. I was like, oh no, we don't use the word give. But I did prepare something, because I do think that a lot of small business owners such as yourselves, and congratulations for being entrepreneurs, that we just don't think about planning in terms of for your business. The average American really doesn't even think about estate planning for themselves, much less for their business entities. But the reality is that unless you have a succession plan, an operating agreement, if you have an LLC, whether you have a sole proprietorship, a DBA, an S Corp, a C Corp, is that when you are no longer here on the other side of heaven, those assets still filter down to you as an individual and your social security number. So what could happen if you don't have anything in place is that it could absolutely fall to probate if it's not addressed either within the entity or it's not addressed within your estate planning documents. So there are a couple of ways that you can, quote unquote, give your business away legally and to avoid any potential issues with the IRS. You can sell it to a co-owner. You, of course, can gift it, as Tia intends to do, to a family member. You can sell it to a key employee, in which case you probably need a buy-sell agreement. You can also have key man insurance, which is something I wanted to pause at. So in Tia's case, her nephew probably will not need any quote unquote liquidity to run the business. But for some of you, if you leave it to someone else, they may need a little influx of cash in order to sell, in order to maintain the business, especially maybe they need inventory or we're in a down economic cycle. So you may want to consider what's called key man insurance that would allow, let's just say, your spouse, if something happened to you, but you're working with someone, if there were insurance that would provide your spouse the cash to basically buy out or to sell their interest in the business. So they would get the equivalent of cash via that life insurance policy, and then the business could go on to continue with the coworker. So I talk a lot, guys, and I give a lot of information. Please don't feel bad if some of this sounds foreign. The average person is just not indoctrinated into ways that the wealthy have for decades, generations even, protected their business interests, their assets, and passed them down. So Tia, feel free to interject. And if anyone has a question in the chat or needs me to clarify, please let me know. So a couple of things that you need when you were considering.
1 second, Mekey.
Oh,
Yeah, I forgot to say that if anyone has questions, even if you're on Clubhouse, go ahead and ask your question. You can ask it in the chat. And then we'll respond to it, or you can, message me privately, and we can respond to it. So I apologize for interrupting there, Mekey, but go ahead, continue.
Oh, no, you're fine. Thank you. So yes, you can sell again to a co-owner, heir, family member, a key employee, an outside party, because yes, there are business interests that actually buy and sell businesses all the time. There's a really good guy on Clubhouse, Kyle Sells Biz. His business literally evaluates businesses and sells them to third parties across the United States and across the globe. So you may also think about selling your business if you don't have anyone to leave it to. There are a lot of options that are available to you as a business owner. Also, if you have a company with multiple members, you can also sell back the shares to the existing members, or have restrictions that no one else can sell to anyone outside. All of this is dictated by your legal documents. If you have an operating agreement for your LLC, your partnerships, your corporations, that is going to be super key. So the one thing that you do need, and I think this isn't addressed a lot because, right, you're working, you're running your business. A lot of you are sole proprietors, you're handling everything yourself. You do need a formal succession plan. And what that is going to dictate is your succession timeline, who your successors are. In Tia's case, that is her nephew. Your formalized standard operating procedures, right? Because I've been in operations before where people literally did not know what to do. Someone went away for 2 weeks and people freaked out because there was literally nothing in place as to how to run the business, where to get the supplies, what key passwords were. So I would strongly suggest that each of you start cultivating a folder if you don't already have. I apologize if this is information you already know, that literally has every single aspect of your business and how to run it, because here is the reality. None of us know when we're no longer going to be here. So you have to think about it. If you did not wake up tomorrow, would someone be able to take those reins from your instructions and basically cause no disruption to your clients or to that important bottom line, which is the account that the funds come in? So that is something that you also need to think about before you even get to changing your documents as to who is going to receive your business entity. There is no point in them receiving it if they absolutely don't know what to do with it, if they can't access anything, if they don't know what credit card pays what. Like that really cool website that Tia was showing us. I don't know what that is, Tia, but that looked really cool with the metrics. Her nephew would need to know how to access that website, what the
Wait, really
user
quick.
ID.
Are you guys able to see my screen? I hope
Yep,
so.
I see it. I see
Okay.
the gaming girl. The
Okay.
one with the metrics. That one was really cool. The metrics one.
Yeah, that's SEMrush. And again, if you guys are new to the call, we're talking about me giving away my website gaming girlfriends to my godson. His name is Jaden, and I was sharing with everybody the stats, which I'm using again a website called SEMrush. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, you guys. So I was letting them know that I'm building up the traffic, of course, because I want for the website to make a certain amount of money. And in order for that to happen is that it needs to build up traffic. So I need to build up traffic. I need to get keywords driving traffic to the website, right? So it went from almost a 7,000 organic search traffic in a matter of 2 years to all the way down to 2,000. And what made me check that is after talking to Mekey and knowing that I want to give it away, that I need to get back on it. So this is again SEMrush, and if you're viewing the Zoom link, you should be able to see it. But go ahead, Mekey. Thank you.
You're welcome. So this website, your nephew would need to have the user ID, the password, know how it's paid, if he would have to replace those payments because, maybe it's linked to a credit card. That would be for Tia. So all of these are little tiny details that you would need in that standard operating procedures manual. And also, if you were ever thinking of selling your business, this is going to be really, really key, because it would show how the business would continue without disruption, right? It would also be advisable that you probably evaluate your business for a proper valuation. Again, this is purely for the IRS purposes. As I mentioned earlier in the call, the IRS is very particular about dollar amounts that are passed, right? Even legally between beneficiaries, unless you are leaving it to your spouse outright at your death. At first death, there isn't a lot of tax. But absolutely, you want to have a proper business valuation. And that is going to be important when I get further along the call into some of the more complex strategies that you could utilize. So if you noted, Tia's nephew is a minor. Typically, we don't want to leave things outright to a minor, number one. And I did actually have this conversation with Tia, because the adults in their lives who may be icky would actually have jurisdiction over those assets. So that is something that you want to keep in mind. You can pass your business along in trust if it's a minor. And actually, even if it's adult, there's a lot of protections that trusts offer. Basically, if that person were to get married, and icky is my favorite word, if they were to get married to someone icky, then that business entity would be protected if you structured it properly, meaning that even a divorce, that would not be an asset that could be split, because in essence, that business would belong to the trust and not that individual. The person that you leave it to, such as Tia's nephew, is the beneficiary or would be the recipient of the trust. So even if someone were to, let's just say he would get sued, for the most part, that would be hands off, even though that would be a considerable source of income for him. So this is actually why we utilize proper business structures, trusts, family limited partnerships, these types of things, because they do provide that protection for the beneficiaries in the event that something happened to them, they get sued, they have bankruptcy, or let's just say that there are issues because we all go through things, especially things are crazy right now. Let's just say that someone had major medical issues, or God forbid, someone became an addict. There are protections that you can put. Sorry, guys. I think someone is actually at the door. They're calling. There are protections that you. Yeah, I promise I'm never this popular on a Sunday morning, but there are protections that you can put in place to restrict that individual from having full access to the business that you could not do if it was just owned fully outright, if that makes sense. So I will get into a further list.
You're very popular today. Let me just say that.
I'm very popular today, apparently.
So I have a really quick, does anybody have any questions yet? You guys are all e-commerce store owners. Nobody has any questions about, does everybody, I mean, we're gonna all die. I hate to be that. I mean, that's just really the reality of it, right?
I have a question to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good morning, Ron. Good morning, everyone. How soon should we set something like that up? Because as e-commerce owners, a lot of us, this is our first business, and everything, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, is it going to be a viable business? Is it going to be successful? Some people start it and then, you know what, we give it up. So at what point do you take that step to protect yourself in the business and everything else?
Today. Because, and thank you for that question, Rod. That is a great one. I do have one question for you, and I'm not being facetious, although I am known to be. Do you know the date that you will go to the other side of heaven?
I do not. Only he knows that date.
That is correct. So, so that means that tomorrow, if we don't wake up tomorrow, any of us listening on the call, what would happen to your existing business, whether it's viable or not?
Oh, you're asking me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, what will happen to the business? I guess my wife would and my sister would take it over, but you're right. I mean, passwords and everything else. I mean, they don't have all that information. They have some of it, but yeah.
Well, before you even get to user IDs and passwords legally, what could happen? So you mentioned that you have a wife.
Right, but we have a trust. We're ahead of the
Okay.
game. We have all that stuff. We have trusts and all that stuff set up. House and accounts and everything else.
But the business is inside the trust already?
The business is sole proprietorship, not yet.
Right. So what would happen then, because it's a sole proprietorship and it's taxed under your social, if you do not have that specifically addressed either in an operating agreement, or if you do not have it addressed, another entity does not have jurisdiction over it, what would happen if you do not have it addressed in your will is that depending on the amount, it may go to probate. So at the very least, worst case scenario, your wife would have to petition a judge to get that asset structured into her name. And it wouldn't cost very much. She would be appointed the executor. She would be appointed the owner by virtue of being your wife. The absolute worst case scenario is if your sister decided, you know what, I want that business, it's mine. And then your sister contested. And then now you have a probate problem, in which case a judge would decide and charge both sides a whole lot of money, and all of that would come directly from the business. So this is why you have things in writing. And I do appreciate you asking that question, Rod, because it's a good one. People presume that things typically pass outright to the spouse. Not always. It's always best to have something in writing. So even if it's not viable, which is a good question, you always plan for today, not for tomorrow. Right. I actually even advise this, and I do have to give a disclosure. I'm not serving in any capacity. This is just information. I strongly suggest that you confirm it or affirm it with a licensed and or accredited professional in your state or jurisdiction, because that does matter. Is basically that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we do know all that we have today. So yes, even if it is setting up the structure, even if it is not really turning a profit, because shout out to Uber, it's been publicly traded, and for a long time Uber was in the red, not in the black, but it's a publicly traded company and we all use Uber, right? So you still need at least a succession plan. And if you wanted to work with your other estate planning that you have in place, you absolutely need to remember that it is an asset. Your business is an asset. It is tied to a social security number, especially if you're a sole proprietor. At death, that is treated just like any other account that you have because it's tied directly to your social security number. So that's a great point. Thank you so much for that question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And one last question. I guess, when do you, or should I, change it from a sole proprietorship to a LLC? Advisable, not advisable? Would that be a good thing to make things easier?
Another good question. If any of you were on Clubhouse, I actually did a room with the wonderful CPA, Safi, that is on the app. She has her master's in taxation. She works with small business owners. She actually went through what are the different entities and what they mean. So I am not a CPA. I know a little about a lot. However, that would actually be something you would probably talk with your CPA because the structure depends on a lot of things, the volume, the income level. You can have a partnership that is taxed as an S corp, but however, the IRS is really diligent about S corps, you should have some form of payroll attached. It really depends on if you want to pay yourself a salary, and if you're then going to use that salary maybe to fund a SEP IRA, simple IRA if you have employees. Maybe you even want to set up a solo 401k, Rod, because you mentioned that you had a wife. You could put away over a little over $60,000 as an individual if you have a solo 401k and take the majority of your profits from your business. So there are a lot of things to consider when you're thinking about which business entity to structure. The only thing that I would advise is I tell people start how you want to land, because a lot of times what will happen is you will start to produce a lot of income, a lot of revenue, and then it's going to be more expensive for you to transition that business entity into another one. So that would be a good conversation with your CPA. I would just kind of let them know what the future plans are, what the trajectory is, who the current employees are, what state you're in. All of these things, and your existing estate planning, all of these things combined are going to help your CPA to guide you in terms of what business structure would be best for your business right now. Another great question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Does anybody have any other questions? No other questions. Okay, just quick reset. I'm Tia Jones. I host rooms on Clubhouse, usually on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I was a little sick this month, so I wasn't able to do that, and just been working on the membership, which is Mastering Pop, which is Mastering Profitability over Popularity, where I help e-commerce store owners on how to scale their store. Today we have Mekey Gabriel on the call, and how the call came about was me sharing that I was going to gift my godson with my store, Gaming Girlfriends. And she was just like, "You're just going to give it to him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just going to give it to him." So that is why we're doing the call right now, is that she says you just can't just give him the store, right? So again, if you guys have any questions, we are all e-commerce or any type of business that you have, right? If you're selling services, products, it doesn't matter. We're not going to live forever. So what happens to your business once you are no longer here on this planet, right? So Mekey, go ahead and continue.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tia. And yes,
do you want to introduce yourself again? I mean, just
sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm Mekey Gabriel. I'm a securities licensed professional. I've been in the industry about 27 years, give or take. Traditionally worked with ultra high net worth clients. So I have seen how the wealthy, quote unquote, protect their assets. Financial and estate planning is just a standard practice. A lot of us are just not indoctrinated into the ways of the IRS so that we can avoid tax evasion and unnecessary death. I'm so sorry, we can't avoid that. All death is unnecessary. Unnecessary taxes at death. And how I refer to that is this side of heaven and the other side of heaven. So that conversation with Tia made me say that for two reasons. Number one, because yes, legally you can't just give something to the IRS because they do oversee those amounts. They're very particular about it. And number two, the nephew was a minor, which typically we don't want to give assets outright to our children. That includes naming them as beneficiaries on our IRAs, life insurance, annuities, 403Bs, 457s, all of those things, because what may happen is the adults in their life may assume guardianship, and then those assets would probably, not necessarily, but you'll always find a reason to spend money for something. So you definitely need to keep oversight of that, especially if you're dealing with little people in your life. The bigger people that may be icky would have jurisdiction over their assets until a certain age. And then like in Tia's case, who knows what may happen to the business until her nephew became 18, if she should go to the other side of heaven before that point, which is why your planning is so key. So we discussed the ways that you could give your business the operating procedures manual that you need, or something that'll show that person, that entity, that family member, that spouse, exactly what is done, how it's done, when it's done, how it's paid for, what's the end result, what they need to do. We're talking inventory, websites, all sorts of things, credit cards, checking accounts, CPAs, professionals, on and on and on and on. You guys just think about it. Every keystroke of your business does need to be documented and noted, so that you do want that business to pass on seamlessly to the next generation, the next person, your spouse, if you sell it, et cetera, et cetera. So we talked about how you could place the business inside of a trust. There is also something for those of you that have complex business structures. Maybe you have more than one business. You can also set up what's called a family LLC. This would actually allow you to restrict members of your family from selling outside shares. So again, this is a very complex strategy. It's not super complex, but it does require consulting with your CPAs and your business or estate planning attorneys to formulate. You would actually be able to gift shares, and I am using the air quotes, gift shares to the limited partners that you create within those structures. So you would typically have a general partner and a limited partner. But what this does, and this is absolutely a bastion of the wealthy that they utilize, the IRS code allows you to gift those shares about 20 to 40% within the business entity. So that's why those valuations are so important, for you to put a dollar amount on your businesses, because you can discount that this side of heaven by gifting them to family members as the limited partners in your family limited partnership structures. You can also transfer non-managing interests and maintain control. So I did kind of want to pause here, Tia, because I do want to address those business owners who may want to gift their business, let's just say to a younger generation, or in your case to a cousin. But what if you wanted to maintain control? What if you're like, you know what? I want to give this away, as Tia intends, not on the other side of heaven, but now to provide a source of income and revenue for her cousin. But what if Tia's like, you know what? I don't want to hand over the reins, right? There are options that Tia can use, especially if she looked at that business structure to where she gives non-managing rights to her nephew so that it will pass to him and that he could utilize it. He would receive a payment as a limited partner, but maybe Tia would remain a general partner, or one of her business entities would, so that she could maintain control and kind of oversee it while she's here. So this is why I say that you should consult with your CPA and your estate planning attorney, because there are all sorts of tips and tricks that you can legally do. Maybe you kind of want to test them for a little while, right? You want to give them the reins, but you still want to control it. Or you want to give them the horse and not control the reins. I'm sorry, my little euphemisms are well known, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? So you still want to oversee it, but you don't want to pass it outright. In which case, sometimes a family limited partnership is key, because you remain the general partner. And then you have those family members, those minors, maybe limited partners in trust, so that they can kind of have jurisdiction, but not control, if that makes sense. Or some of you may still require income from these businesses, but maybe you want to give it to your adult children or someone else to run for you. That is where that structure comes into place. There's absolutely a way that you can structure that to where maybe you get a certain amount of the income, or maybe you need all of the income and you just cede control. So again,
I have a
it's
question.
all in the details.
So, and forgive me if this is something that you mentioned already. So let's say that I want to gift my godson. I'm going to gift my godson with the business, and I'm going to gift it to him before I pass away. And let's just say he gets married, right? So he gets married. And so now they share everything together. How does that work exactly?
that works exactly how you want it to work. So again, that's why, like in your example with your nephew, so if you were to give it to him outright, your godson, I'm so sorry, I keep saying your nephew, your godson, if you were to give it to him,
godson, cousin, go ahead, just kidding,
the baby boy into his life,
if you
were to gift it to him outright, number one, that would probably trigger, because again, the IRS does not go around lurking, contrary to popular belief. The IRS does not go around lurking to see what's going on. There aren't agents that are going to jump out of the bushes and say boo. They don't really monitor every keystroke that we do. But what happens is, I always bet on the IRS, because sooner or later they figure things out. So if Tia were to quote unquote give an entity that is already generating income to her nephew, what would happen when the IRS figures that out is they would penalize Tia, because again, it's over that $16,000 annual limit for 2022. So they would basically come in and they would say, hey, you owe us some money. You gave a gift valued at X amount of dollars. You owe tax on that transfer. So that is actually what happens sometimes when we're gifting assets to irrevocable trusts and business entities. The IRS is not stupid. They are aware of what these things look like. So they're like, you owe us some tax. At the very least, you probably owe us some tax because you're transitioning it from Tia or Tia's business entity to someone else. Which is why you always want to sometimes have buy-sell agreements, even when it's with your children. Have you guys ever seen sometimes on those legal shows where they'll have a set of documents and the family member like sells their car for $1 to their children? Well, this is why, right? Because just giving, the IRS does not like that. Actually, they don't want you to do that because they will penalize you. There's a tax. You have to report it as a gift tax. There are a lot of individuals that have actually gone to jail through tax evasion because they had people, quote unquote, blessing them with funds and not reporting it. So Tia's nephew, that would have to be reported. It would have to be changed. And now he's the receiving person on that. So Tia, you know how I answer questions. I have to answer it from the rooter to the tutor. So now that I've explained that part.
But wait a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt this, but okay, no, go ahead. And then I have another question. It still pertains to what we're talking about too.
Right. So now I'm going to get to the spouse. So basically, when I said it would be up to you as to what would happen with his future spouse, it depends on how you would allow him to receive it. Right. So let's just say that you did say, you know what, I'm Tia baby baller. Just go ahead and take it outright. No restrictions. I'm giving you this entity. I'm going to take care of whatever tax. I'm letting the IRS know their business, back up off me. I did what I'm supposed to do. Here you go. Baby boy in Tia's life. It is yours outright. So then maybe that doesn't have any protections as it exists currently. It would transfer to him. Then it absolutely could be a liability. If he were to marry someone, if he were to then get a divorce, that person could claim part ownership in that, saying, hey, I helped with this business. Yes, Tia gave it to him, and but I helped. I put blood, sweat, and tears in here too. We're getting a divorce. I want half, or I want more than half in some cases. So, but because we're also having this call, you're going to say, I don't really want that option. I don't want someone to be able to come into something that I'm giving my godson. I don't care who she is, how beautiful she is, how much she helps, if she has a tech background or what. So you, in turn, when you gift it to him or how you structure it, you are going to dictate that in those documents. Maybe you are going to set it up to say that he can't sell it to anyone else. Maybe you're going to set it up to say that it is going to pass per stirpes or through the bloodline, which means that it would only or could only pass to his children of his bloodline. And the reason that it's so important to put that for anyone listening, and this is for all of your estate planning documents, your beneficiaries for your IRAs, when we put per stirpes, it seems a little mean, but not really. It's because you can't control what happens in the future. So let's just say that your child or someone grows up, gets married, marries someone with children outside of the marriage. When you put per stirpes, you are stipulating, I only want these assets to pass through my bloodline, right? It's wonderful if my children marry, single moms or single dads. That's wonderful. We love everybody, kumbaya. But the fact of the matter is that 99% of the wealthy, the documents that I've seen, they're absolutely per stirpies, right? Because this is how generational wealth works, people. It can only be generational wealth if it passes through generations. The way that it passes through generations is it passes protected, meaning that you're not just leaving to chance in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Those values that were instilled in our children, our grandchildren are going to be in place, and they're going to keep those business entities and assets tight. No, on this side of heaven, Tia is going to look at that and say, you know what? Yeah, I don't want to take that to chance. So I'm going to structure this in such a way that when he receives it, there is no option. Whoever he marries, they can benefit from that income. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, this asset is owned by the trust, and there are stipulations within that trust that this asset then only passes down for stirpies and does not belong to him outright, belongs to the entity, and the entity stays in the family. Does that answer your question, Tia? And then you had another one?
No, you actually covered it, because that was my main concern, is that me giving the business to my godson, right? And them getting a divorce, like him getting married, him, collecting money, making money with the business, and then it doesn't work out with his wife. And let's just say she helped out, and now she wants to go after the business. That was my biggest concern, is that I do not want her to have access to the business, as terrible as that may sound.
No, it's not terrible, because we just don't think this way, right? It's just not something we're indoctrinated to. But as I said earlier, this is how generational wealth lasts. This is how the Rockefellers are still able to have assets, almost 100 years later. If we did not have these protections in place, then it's left up to chance, and that's not what you want. So when you're thinking about your succession plan, if you're going to utilize trusts, if you're going to have operating agreements, if you're going to consider a family limited partnership, a family trust, you can absolutely put restrictions in there that say, hey, I've worked hard for this e-commerce business. I don't want you to be able to sell it to anyone outside of the family. I don't want you to be able to sell any shares to anyone outside of the business group. And where do you put that in writing? Again, you don't leave it to chance. Those little deathbed promises, from Big Mama, that say, please make sure you never sell my business. Okay, Big Mama, I promise. Yeah, put it in writing.
Yeah.
Put it in writing. Some people fall in love. They're like, oh, I want to share what someone has given to me with you. And those little emotions come into play. No, that is not 99% of the time what the wealthy do. They put it in writing. And then it's actually, it gives an opportunity for that heir, that beneficiary, to really be not restricted, right? We think it's restricted because we don't think that way, which is also why, shout out to prenups, those are actually in place. It basically says that I love you, I'm meeting you, you get me, you may get to share from what I have to benefit from it, but what's mine is mine from my family. And it's going to ensure that it passes down to my future family, my generation, and my bloodline. And I'm so sorry, but love me or love my assets. So your nephew, I keep saying nephew, the baby boy, his baby is going to be able to say that, like, yes, I have this business, I'm going to take care of the house and the bills, but if it doesn't work out, this business stays with me and mine, because that is how Tia wanted it. So sorry, but that's how it is. It's in writing. There you go.
Okay, so if this happens in the way that I want it to happen, it's technically bulletproof, that nobody can touch it.
For the most part, yes, which is why you consult with your tax professionals, which is why you consult with your estate planning professionals. Mm-hmm. Nothing against LegalZoom and Legal Shield and all of those things, but to borrow a quote from a wonderful estate planning attorney, your lives are not fill in the blank. Those do-it-yourselfers do not ask for any questions. For example, if you have a special needs person in your lives that is going to be a beneficiary. And I'm speaking anything across the board. When I'm speaking of succession, really, you can even consider that your IRAs, your 401ks, your 403bs, your annuities, your life insurance, anything. We really don't want to leave minors, especially special needs adults and or children. I'm an autism mom myself. My son is not on anything, because any inheritance, and it's a very, very tiny number, guys. I mean, it's probably like a couple of $1,000, would mean that he would not be allowed to get his state and or federal benefits, which is super important for those that are disabled. So again, if you have disabled relatives, maybe your mom is on SSI or on disability or on Medicaid, it's super, super important to disclose all of that when you're going to talk to your CPAs and attorneys, because there are going to be other options for them because you don't want to mess with those benefits. I've seen that happen, and it's not pretty. Because on the other side of heaven, remember, you can't change those documents if you're not here. If we're dealing with irrevocable trust, it's expensive to kind of wind the clock back. So you want to be super careful and have those conversations, which leads me to the other point.
Oh, really quick, before you continue, I just want to say something that was mentioned in the chat to the people that are on Clubhouse that may not be looking at the Zoom call right now. We're actually all should be looking at my screen, which is Gaming Girlfriends, the website that I'm going to gift my godson. Kevin with Geeky and Kinky says, in my prenup, I made sure to write that my spouse had nothing to do with my company. My company, shares, accounts, any debt, what have you, belong to me. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for being on the call. Thank you for sharing that with us. Did you want to add anything to it, Kevin? No pressure. No pressure. No? Okay.
No, that was it.
Oh, it's Natasha. What's up, Natasha?
Hi, Gia. Hi, everyone.
Oh, no, that's, I mean, thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining the call. All right, so we'll keep it going. Does anybody else want to share something that they've done or that they have not done? Does anybody have any questions right now? Again, we have Mekey on the call. We're talking about protecting our wealth, right? Protecting our legacy. A lot of us, this is the beginning of the legacy, right? This is the beginning. We're the first ones to start. And that's why we're having the call. I want to protect myself. I want to protect my godson. I want to protect what I'm giving him, right? So that's why Mekey is sharing with us all this good stuff. This call is being recorded right now on Zoom and on Clubhouse. And I think I might make it available to everybody because I know a lot of people were not able to make the call. But does anybody have any questions? If you're on Clubhouse and you have a question, feel free to raise your hand and I will bring you up and you can ask your question. All right. Okay, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving, Mekey. Do you have anything else you want to share with us?
Awesome. Yes. What I wanted to share too is that you should also think about your estate planning in totality while we're having this conversation, right? Because the reality is tomorrow is not promised to any one of us. Death is inevitable. It is going to happen. So I challenge you, if you are listening, think about it. This is how it should go. If you did not wake up tomorrow, you should know exactly what is going to happen. Who's going to feed the dog? Who's going to pay daycare? Who's going to go get the groceries? Where the burial money is, where the policies are. You guys should have your folder with all of your statements, your financial statements, business being separate. Shout out to the person that has that prenup in place. Absolutely. I will just say for prenups, be careful not to commingle assets, especially those of you in community property estates. So for example, in Texas, when we have clients with separate property accounts, meaning they've inherited it prior to getting married, what you bring to the table, the principal is yours. The interest in a community property estate belongs to both of you. So you may want to siphon off the interest unless you have that clearly indicated in your prenup, as you stated, which is awesome sauce because a lot of people don't think about protection. It sounds like, oh, but I'm in love. No, that does not mean that you have the right to everything that happened before this point. I'm definitely a proponent of prenups. And if someone is like, well, you want a prenup, you don't love me. Well, I guess that means you wouldn't marry a trust fund baby either, because a prenup is just a trust before the trust. Trusts are very restrictive. They do not allow for anything unless the grantor, the person who initiates that trust, allows it. It's called a power of appointment. Rarely do I see those in documents that allows a spouse to basically put their spouse on the trust as a permanent beneficiary, because a lot of people, again, they're interested in generational wealth and they just don't want that option. They just don't want that to pass or even give their heirs and beneficiaries the option to alter the documents that they set in place. So that was a great point. I also wanted to add to Rod's question that was earlier saying, do I need to get all of this in place? a lot of people do take their time. So 2 final things. Think about it. We don't allow ourselves the luxury of really thinking about, outside of Tia's example, which is wonderful that she wants to initiate something soon, so that he can take jurisdiction over that. That's going to be his livelihood, which is such an awesome, beautiful thing to do. But for the most of us, it is going to happen at death. So I want you all to think about, when do you conceivably want to give up the reins, right? It could be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Maybe it is never. Maybe you're going to want to derive income from that asset. Maybe you don't want to give up the reins completely. Maybe you're just going to do it at death, in which case you need to review whatever you have in place at least every 3 to 5 years. Or if there's a major change, what if a beneficiary should pass away, right? What if the spouse should pass away? What if you go from making $10,000 a month to $100,000 a month? What if you change locations? What if you move? All of these things means that you should be revisiting your documents. Congress, all of a sudden, as if they don't have enough to do, is very busy in changing the legislation for a lot of estate planning and financial planning things and rules that we've had in place for decades. So this is also why I just wanted to add, you should be revisiting these things at least every 3 to 5 years, or if there's a major life change, because you want to make sure that whatever you have in place keeps up with current legislation, because sometimes things are outdated and they just no longer work. So you do have to pay your attorney a little bit more money, have a little consultation, and alter those documents from time to time, just to make sure that it is still putting you and your beneficiaries in the best light possible, as well as avoiding any undue tax, because the IRS is always out there, and the IRS always wins, this side of heaven or the next side of heaven. The other thing is, I wanted to remind everyone, you should have a financial power of attorney for you business owners, right? COVID should have scared the bejesus out of all of us. If something happened to the lovely Miss Tia, would someone be able to enact that business in her name and sign off on that? Make sure that is a trusted person, of course. And don't assume that it's automatically going to be your spouse, because depending on where you are, what that person is dealing with, that does not matter, right? So I always say that, because people are surprised. My spouse can't sign off on me. Not necessarily. If we have an IRA and I can't get a hold of the wife, and that's her IRA, and the spouse calls, unless we have a power of attorney on file, I cannot answer any questions about that asset, because that person is not listed on it. So make sure you have at least a financial power of attorney, especially for your business owners, to allow someone to transact business on your behalf in case you were incapacitated out of the country and emergency comes up. So that is something to consider. For those of you setting up trusts, make sure you consider who the trustee is, because that is the person that is going to be overseeing that asset and administering to it. You can also consider a corporate trustee if you do not have anyone to serve in that capacity, because your trust and the restrictions and implications are only as good as the person overseeing that trust. Typically recommended, like, you turn over the reins to an adult child about the age 35, because we all tend to be a little bit silly. So yes, you can have a trust set up with all of the restrictions in place that we talked about. But if you turn over trustee to the child too early, or have an icky trustee, they can basically just spin down the assets, do whatever they want, because the IRS does not come in and say, this is what this trust document says. They grant you a lot of leeway with that. It's just, if it is contested, then, the probate courts and the courts step in. So you want to make sure that you're drafting your documents well with the help of an attorney, and you're really, really careful about who you choose to have oversight over them. I think that's all I have, Tia. I wrote some good notes. I hope I did a good job.
You did a fantastic job. I know I appreciate you being on the call. If for anyone new in the room, I saw Glenn. Glenn, what's up on Clubhouse? Thank you for joining the call again today. We're talking about me gifting my godson with one of my e-commerce stores. I'm giving my store gaming girlfriends to my godson. And I was having a conversation with Mekey about a month ago, a little over a month ago. And she's like, are you just gifting it to him? And I was just like, yeah. And so she said that wouldn't be the best thing to do. So I was like, God, we should have a room on this, because, a lot of us have businesses, and what happens when we pass away, right? What happens to the business when we pass away, or what happens if we want to give the business to someone else? So I was concerned when she says, what if his wife comes after it? And I'm thinking, he's not married, right? But he's not married yet. He's 16, going on 17, but he's a handsome guy. So he's going to be married at some point, right? So I wanted to have this room so that Mekey could share all this information with all of you guys. The call is being recorded. We're on Zoom right now. I'm actually live on Zoom at the moment, but if anyone has any questions on Clubhouse, feel free to raise your hand. If you do not, it's all good. Again, I will probably post this. Mekey, should we make this call live? I mean, posted like on my blog where people can watch it, even though we're not doing much, right? They're only looking at this Gaming Girlfriends, but they can actually listen to it. What do you think?
I think so, Tia, because it's so very important. You know, we hear those buzzwords all the time: generational wealth, trust, succession planning.
Yeah.
I think we need to normalize these conversations because, the fact of the matter is, in certain communities, we're going backwards. We have the income, but we don't protect it. So I always say, make the bag by all means, but is your bag protected? So absolutely, let's share, let's bless the world. Hopefully we'll get some minds churning, get some people thinking. They're going to share it, and eventually every asset that we own is going to be protected, structured properly. Shout out to the wealthy for giving us the blueprint. Now we just need to access those professionals, and you don't need to make $1 gazillion to have this in place. We all work too hard. We need to make sure that it goes exactly the way that we want it to go. So I agree with that.
You know what? Actually, before we leave, before we end the call, let's talk
I have a quick question to Tia.
What's up, Zifa? Good morning, Zifa. Zifa's boutique in the building.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I have a quick question. So this is also great information, and I've really appreciated it. So thank you, Tia, and thank you. I forgot what's her name, Tia, the lovely lady giving us all these good. Mekey, and thank you so much, Mekey. My quick question was: so if you have a business, for example, my business is an LLC. My husband is not involved in the business. He won't know what to do with the business at all. And then I have like a 2-year-old. So if something were to happen to me today, I don't have a trust yet. And I'm like really thinking about doing that. But like why, like who will I put in the trust? Is that if you don't have anyone in your life who is, you can set up as a trust. Is there like an other option that you can do? I don't know. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yes, and that's a very, very good question. So if there's not anyone that serves in that capacity, and that is quite common. There are corporate trustees that you can utilize. Now, I will say that a lot of them, they will decline to serve depending on what capacity that is. It's actually something that I'm looking into as a business model. I'll share because I see that there's a need for it at a level, under what people typically use corporate trustees for. Some attorneys serve in this capacity as well. They will serve as fiduciaries, and it's called a fiduciary. That's what the trustee is. And all that is a fancy term that basically means that they are legally required and mandated, morally and ethically, to consider the needs of the entity or the asset above themselves, right? So they're it goes far beyond not stealing assets. It goes to evaluating the proper things, making sure that you're following the lines of that document, so forth and so on. So in your situation, if you were sitting in front of me, this is purely theoretical. Number one, I would make sure that your estate planning documents indicate that your husband, even though he's not involved, that ownership would pass directly to him if something happened to him. So you can do that within the LLC, within your operating agreement. Right? You can address it there, or consult with an estate planning attorney to see if the best way to do that would maybe be in your will at death. So the IRS does allow, and shout out to the Reagan administration, love him or hate him, the reality is that before that time, at first death, the IRS would actually come after you and tax your estate up to 40%, right? Which is also why rich people are always upset. So it wasn't even that long ago that you couldn't pass your estate, everything you own from the rooter to the tutor in its entirety to your spouse without any tax implications. So now it is called that spousal allowance, right? So that is absolutely what you need to have in place. And that's a great example. Your spouse wouldn't list that because it's not his asset right now. And we presume sometimes that when we're married, that it's just automatically what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. Again, depending on the state, depending on the asset, that is absolutely not the case. So you may want to consider in your will having that passed to your spouse, right? Or if you, we talked about earlier, if your spouse would not be interested in running it, maybe there is a key employee or someone else, or that would give him the option. Maybe there would need to be some life insurance in there so that he could, buy it out. No, I'm so sorry. Let me go back. He would need to buy it out, but he would be the owner. Maybe someone else would be interested in buying a part of that to keep it running, like the operational aspects. But what you would definitely want to do is make sure that it would go to your spouse at death. And then what can be considered, maybe you would want it to go half and half. Maybe you would want the baby, even though they're a minor, to have a half interest in that, in which case you can create trust within your will. This is complex estate planning. You absolutely need to make sure that your estate planning attorney can handle it. There are a lot of estate planning attorneys that only do what's called living wills, the revocable trusts, which is fine. For the average person, that's probably not even needed. But for someone like you that would have different interests and maybe want to carve out part of that for the baby. And remember, we hope that you stay on this side of heaven as long as you can. But in the event that you did not, just keep that in mind. You are able to create entities in your wills at death, in which case then maybe that ownership would be split 50-50 if that's what you wanted. Or like my earlier example, you could have the trust for the child or the children be the limited partners, with your spouse being the general partner. So he would retain ownership and control, but they would have that interest. And then after your death, then the documents could be restructured to where, if he's the one that's in control, that's something, how it would, fall down from his perspective, if that makes sense. That's a really, really good question. And I know I gave a bit of a complex answer, but I'm happy to go into more detail if you like me to.
No, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you. That gives me a little bit of thank you so much, Mekey.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your question, Zifa. If anyone has any questions on Clubhouse, feel free to raise your hand. We're going to be ending the call in like a few minutes, but Mekey, before we end the call, you posted something on Instagram like a week ago, and it was about, was his name Chadwick from Black Panther?
Yes.
So let's talk about that really quick, because when I saw the post, I just kind of shook my head because we had spoken a little over a month prior. So I was just like, oh my goodness. So do you want to tell people what happened? I'm sure a lot of you guys already know. Go for it, Mekey.
Absolutely. And we see this with a lot of celebrities. So first I'll say, I'm never a respecter of just money. I'm a respecter of action and protection, because what are we all working for if it's not protected, right? That's the point. So the second thing is that we tend to think that celebrities and people that make a lot of money are super smart. That is not necessarily the case. I love Chadwick Boseman. He was such a beautiful soul. Black Panther won't be the same without him. But if I could go back in time, I would kidnap him, take him to an estate planning attorney, force him to set some documents up, even if he wrote something on a napkin and I notarized it, right? Because what happened in Chadwick's estate is that he did not have a will in place. He did not have a trust. Which meant that his estate had to be split 3 ways. His wife conceded. Now, we don't know if this is what he wanted or not, because he didn't leave anything in writing to attest to his wishes. And it ended up being almost a third of his estate, over $1 million, was given to the state of California. Now, the state of California needs money, but did it need money from Chadwick Boseman? No. That money belonged to his wife, his future legacy, his beneficiaries, his heirs, his family, and it went unnecessarily to the state of California. I don't know if his wife conceded or if his parents were contesting. We don't know the details of that, but she voluntarily decided to give a little over $1 million, a third of the estate, to his parents. In most cases, we don't see that. Typically, assets go completely outright to the spouse. So his spouse got a little over $1 million, his family, his mom and dad, a little over $1 million, and the state of California, which I'm quite sure he did not intention, went to the state of California, probate fees, and just estate fees, because he did not have anything in place. So it is super, super important, guys. Have your documents in place. We're talking about your businesses today, but remember, you are your businesses. A lot of you are sole proprietors. You are your business. Make sure your assets are protected. Make sure you have your legal documents in place. And again, my infamous reminder, if you did not wake up tomorrow, how is it going to go? Best to have it in writing, best to have it backed up. And from this call, if we don't take away anything, Tia, even from Chadwick's example, I want us all to just give ourselves the luxury of just thinking about it. How do you want it to go? How do you want it to go? This side of heaven and the other side of heaven. And you plan for today. And as Tia said, like with her nephew, he's 16. We plan for today, but we also think about tomorrow. Put those protections in there, get it in writing. And in a lot of cases, you have proper business entities. Maybe some of what you're doing, you can also deduct from some of your taxes. Check with the CPA on that, because they're, again, Congress is just having way too much fun changing stuff. I really wish they would kind of stop, actually. So make sure what you're doing, just let your CPA know, let your estate planning attorney know. But yes, Chadwick, a 2-hour conversation could have saved $1 million. And we don't have $1 million to give to the state, to the feds. We just don't. So yeah, he's definitely beloved. But if I could go back in time, him, Prince, Aretha Franklin, let me see who else. The Godfather of Soul. All of them.
Those people.
Yes, ma'am.
But with Chadwick, I mean, he knew what was happening to himself. So I'm just like, I'm so surprised that he didn't have anything in place. So
yeah, I think that's key, Tia. Unless you are really indoctrinated into this, which I see so many times with clients that I work with, clients that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They just grow up this way. You have a family attorney. You come into that wealth. I've worked with families that have had generational wealth for 3 years.
yeah,
I mean, generational wealth to the point where they could buy an airplane every year if they wanted to. No one has ever worked for generations. But again, it's almost just like we have not been privy to this. And I think that Chadwick is a great example, because I know he signed contracts because he was an actor. He had a publicist, you know what I'm saying? But someone should have literally said, bro, hey, you got this wife, you've got this image, all of these things. Let's put this in writing, right? And no one ever thought about it. And that just really breaks my heart. So I know good and darn well, if it's happening for Chadwick at his level, probably the top 5 of actors, well known, that Black Panther, this second legacy movie would have just cemented his legacy. If he didn't have the wherewithal to do it, or Prince or Aretha Franklin or any of those people, thank you so much, Tia, for having this conversation, because hopefully whoever listens to this, you're going to make an impact and you're going to change your family's future by not allowing those assets to go unnecessarily to the state. While they're grieving, they're also going to have to be fighting in court. So thank you for having this conversation, Tia.
No, I'm glad that we had it. Hopefully, we can probably do it again, maybe, a few months from now, so that in case people, of course, a ton of people miss this conversation, but I'm going to definitely post it on Facebook and my blog. So I appreciate you joining the call. Does anybody on the call have any questions before we let Mekey go? Because if we let Mekey go, hold on a second, I'm going to thank you, Glenn. I see you and I hear you. Thank you for the people that joined on Clubhouse. Thank you for everyone on the actual Zoom call. I appreciate it. Ralph, great question. Zifa, great question. Natasha, thank you for sharing. Any other questions? If not, we are going to end this Zoom call. And I'm going to go eat because I'm hungry and it's early over here. I don't know what time it is for you guys, but it's 8:20 over here. Let me see. Hold on a second. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So no questions, Mekey. Thank you again. I'm going to call you in a second, right? I will. All right.
Oh, you know what? I can't get to the little video thing, the little mute button. Yes, Tia. Awesome. Thank you. And no, I am happy to have this conversation. For those of you on Clubhouse, I do host a room. Oh, yeah. I have a club, Wealth Financial Flowers. Usually when I get bored, triggered, shout out to Glenn because crypto is one of my trigger words. I'm just all about protection, guys. Doesn't matter if you're investing in real estate, you're investing in your businesses. I'm all about protection. That is absolutely the number one thing I've learned from the wealthy. Protect, 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 protect in writing, legal, and take no chances. Leave nothing to chance. So thank you so much. We'll be more than happy to have this conversation as much as we can, because it is super, super important. And shout out to all the entrepreneurs out there. So thank you so much again, Tia.
All right,
Awesome.
guys. Happy Sunday, everybody. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there. If you're interested in learning how to increase your store's conversion rate, average order value, and you're ready to start getting repeat customers, I have a free ebook available for download titled The No Fail, Get More Repeat Customer System. You can find the link for this ebook in the description below.